Okay, so now I know we have not invented yet the way to be in the two parallel tracks at the same time. So that's why we needed to be here now. So we will start with a summary of what has happened in each of the sessions. So the ones being in one can listen to what happened in the other one. You can use the app to ask questions that you didn't have the time to ask before, or hearing about the summary, then you can also ask. So we can start. They are deciding who starts.
Yeah, okay. I'll give you a short summary of what was discussed in track 1. I hope I can be accurate. If not, please, the panelists may intervene. We had 2 panels. One was on cross-border exchange of data between administrations, that is Slovenia and Sweden. Speaking of the implementation of the once-only principle project, which is a large-scale pilot for data exchange between administrations in 20 countries and has 50 beneficiaries. And it is designed to be one of the testing beds for the SDG implementation, the Single Digit Gateway. So Hans Ekstall and Alenka Zuzek-Nemec gave us a presentation of the implementation, or the actually pilots of TOPE in those 2 countries, and how they interact with each other. And they focused on pilot area 1 in TOPE, which is e-services for business mobility. And they concentrated on a use case, which is filing of a branch of a foreign company, so registering a business in Slovenia or Sweden. And they gave each a demo, Hans actually working live demo of, I think it was a 3-click registry of a business, of a Swedish business in Slovenia. So the demo is working, and I thought that was quite impressive. So an administrative burden reduction of considerable effect is actually possible through that solution. So Alenka then showed us how the e-services landscape in Slovenia is designed. Speaking of the general platform for e-services, then the trust services platform, and how they connect with the TOPE connector layer, which is actually what was built during the project. And she then went on also to show us a demo of working to establish registering a Slovenian business in Sweden. So what became clear in that panel is the challenges of semantic mapping, especially regarding the whole range of semantics that play a role when you speak of different administrations, different legal systems, different structures, federal, national. So this is and will, that's what they both said, remain an issue that needs to be tackled. But they're actually quite positive that based on these TOPE pilots, we can draw conclusions of perhaps how to overcome semantic challenges in the long run for other services as well. And another challenge, of course, is the need to, or the advisability to have base registers in countries. So also, that was one interesting question. We had a few questions that were got some interest. I'll just repeat some of them. That was one of, except for the challenges linked to the interoperability, semantic interoperability, it was the question of proof in court, of traces of data exchange, because a lot of countries actually still don't accept electronic proof. Which would, of course, then, that was a question also that related to the second panel with X-Road, the question of how to have personal identifiers that actually link information to a certain person and then are proof in itself. So that was also an open challenge still. And then we had, let me think, yes, the question of whether we need to establish sharing data within one country entirely before we even talk about trying it out on a European level. Indeed, some think that this would be desirable, but others say we need to start with what's possible now and then do it in an iterative process. What did we have? Yeah, another question would be, also the reference to the second panel, which was the NIS. I will come to that shortly. There was also a question of what are major missing building blocks for cross-border data exchange, and Alenka and Hans agreed that this is often mostly a legal problem and a structural problem, so not necessarily technical ones. Then second panel was Miament and Katja Venänen, I hope I pronounced it right. They presented the Nordic Institute for Interoperability Solutions established between Estonia and Finland. And that institute is intergovernmental in nature and is the kind of common development institute for X-Road. So both countries cooperate because it made sense technically, also when it comes to the legal landscape and the mentality and traditions of both countries. So they are kind of a development that institute is a kind of a development community for X-Road. And the elements are basically a lean structure with an advisory board, which is actually Mia and Katja. And they focus on, let me see, X-Road, bringing it forward. X-Road 7 is actually now in development, and the Finnish and Estonian colleagues are working in an agile way to see that problems that are met will be faced in an adequate manner. So X-Road is quite attractive also for other countries. So the Faroe Islands and Iceland and also Norway are thinking about joining, and also other countries are using certain X-Road elements. That doesn't mean that they're part of the NIS, but X-Road is opened to private companies and other states as well, since the source code is open on GitHub. So that was quite impressive, and still, despite all the success that X-Road and NIS has built, there are, of course, always challenges, as with every big project in that sense. And one, of course, is trust, which is core to any such big data sharing project, and setting the same priorities and having the same sense of urgency that was identified by them to work well together. Then we had a very interesting discussion of basically the data that is exchanged via NIS or via the X-Road between both countries, and if I get it correct, it's mainly business register exchange, but it could be also that tax registries will exchange information, or even other intergovernmental affairs can be dealt with in a data exchange manner there. Then there was questions from the audience. Basically, I thought was interesting whether X-Road would be applicable in countries that do not have a national person identifier, but where you have to identify yourself in a classical manner on paper, or fill in your details every time, like, for example, in Germany, where I come from. But it was basically said that X-Road could also deal with such issues. So a person identifier, well, was kind of left open in a technical way whether this could be solved, but basically it was thought that that wouldn't present too much of a problem in the long run. So I think basically from discussion-wise that was it. If you have any more questions, feel free to ask them over the app, and we'll try to answer.
Thank you. It seems to be very clear because there are no questions yet. But so now move to the second panel.
The second we have title with new technologies, and 2 different sessions with quite different point of views. I think it was very fruitful. Catherine Mustard and Ruben Verboch presented streamlining governmental data processes by putting citizens in central of their own data. Project is called Solid as well. And then the other point of view was about natural language processing. Salvatore Esteban Martinez and Doa Sevi, natural language and AI solutions for citizen service evolution. And they both shared at least 2 points as recognized by me and the questioners. There is strong possibilities to reorganize and streamline the public administration processes with new tools, new technologies. And they both are having a role to change the current paradigm of harvesting, collecting and storing data. Let's see what will happen. In the first session, we were discussing about empowering citizens to use and to permit to reuse their personal data stored in public administration's databases. And what to do if and when the existing competition of the amount and gathering the data is switched, diminished, or changing somehow. How and what will happen when services and providers are neglecting data collecting and harvesting? What there will be left? And instead, shall there be strong interest to access a citizen's data stored and access another way? So citizens' possibility to choose where and how to store their own produced data produced by citizens themselves, at this moment gathered and stored in public administration's data warehousing. How it's possible to create personalized data vaults and give different applications a permission or permit to access to that data instead of citizens giving permits to access data in public administration's databases. Are we aiming towards decentralized web applications, or what will happen? And the second point of view was natural language processing with its possibilities, with an excellent background slide set. If you are not familiar with NLP, please check the very first part of that second session. There will be the main concepts clearly visible. There is some key capabilities available in understandable format. And the main issue was how and in which way the role of human language technologies are increasing, and are they increasing, and how we can make them more, have them bigger role with services. There is an interesting Spanish framework available to investigate and analyze for each of us. Stakeholders, roles, actions, something to look at home to see what might be done in each of our offices. And not to forget about the interoperability theme today. There is plenty of interoperability with natural language processing in its different levels. today the main mentioned were components and linguistic data. And when it comes to the user-centric, the question was very root level. What will happen in that Flemish example to my own email address? Should I change it, or can I use the old one? And then for artificial intelligence, what kind of standardization is there existing, or best practices? And there we were. Concept of artificial intelligence is not so clear that we could, at this moment, at this day, today, bring up those standardization examples. Not yet. Perhaps next year.
Thank you. I would like just to point out that if you look at the title of the conference today, citizens were kind of at the center. And this has been something that has been mentioned. I would like to say, in the discussions, it was not fully highlighted, but for example, the case of Estonia with Sweden, they say, okay, they have to agree between two countries. That be quite difficult. One of the success factors was to have the citizen at the center, because then you don't need to discuss about my country or your country, or so. It's the citizen who decides, in fact, how the service has to be designed and offered. And the same was on how the once-only principle project and the services around were built, which were to look at which are the needs of the citizens and always focusing the citizen in the center. And I would like to say something that was not discussed in the panels, but was discussed with our Japanese colleagues aside, which was, we were talking a lot about digital divide and making the link with citizens. So not to lag behind some citizens because they are not digitally ready to follow the evolution of the technology. So the idea would be to have a digital support so that for those that cannot follow and cannot use a digital device, we can use AI or, for example, recognition of handwritten with AI and other technologies to help them and include them in our services without having to change all of them moving to digital. So I think that was also a kind of innovative approach. So we don't need always to innovate with new technologies. We can innovate with new ways of doing. And this is also a bit the example of Solid, which was to look, there was no really new technology used in that project, but was more on a paradigm change, how we can look at things in a different way. So we have proved that we are inventive enough to move forward and to have new ideas. Now I will, because there are some questions. Let's look at the questions. So one of the questions is there any opportunity for NLP technology to be used on the exchange of data? Well, the experts, I don't know where they are, but I would say yes. It can be. Are you there? It can be used. I think that exchange of data and will be helped and supported, for example, using the NLP to understand better the meaning of the data. And that's what was presented during the panel discussing on AI. Second question is the NIS is an example of collaboration between member states in developing a technical solution. What about something similar for AI? I don't know if the question is only directed to them. Do you have an answer to give? Or you can. There are many mics, so.
The answer is why not?
So next year we may come with a new project.
So as we were talking in the panel also, our tech teams from Estonia and from Finland, they work together already. Bureaucrat, which is a kind of a AI component which we think of, and Aurora AI in Finland. and we plan the future together, and we move together. And the cross-border aspect is, I think it's from the very beginning, very much in it.
Thank you. Perhaps you can keep the mic, because there is another question on X-roads. So the question is X-roads meant to be the interoperability platform for Europe, or a interoperability platform for EU, interoperable with other standards and developments?
Our goal is that it's one of the main platforms, not the only one, but we want it to be that it will be compatible with others solutions too. But of course, the more countries use it, it's also always better for the ones that are already using it. So of course we want as many countries as possible to come along.
So yeah, the offer is there. Okay, so perhaps just as we are going to close, we can perhaps look a bit to the future. From what you heard in the panel, is there any message or ideas that you would like to share, looking to the future and perhaps having ideas of new projects or new things that we could do together?
When based to the amount of questions arrived via application, there was no need for extra asking of them. Relating those two topics, there is a material for another session or panel as well. But the change of paradigm is a correct question. In what kind of time, in what kind of period it will happen? That's an interesting question. There are both pro and cons already existing on both ways. That's something I think we will discuss in the future. And then the role of natural language processing, it will be there. Methods, tools, standards, new technologies, hopefully totally new technologies are available. Yes, I think we continue with both of those topics discussed today in the track 2.
Thank you.
Well, this being my first SEMIC, I found it very interesting, but I'm not IT person trained. I'm a lawyer, so I thought it was very inspirational to see what's going on in the technical field in interoperability, and it goes really into detail. And we saw very interesting panel this morning, I think, of how the challenges of semantics work. I often think that we need far more interoperability projects. However, I see on the political level more and more the tendency to look for national solutions. Talking about digital sovereignty on a national level is becoming a big topic these days, and I think we should think further. We should think of European sovereignty. We should think about what we can do in Europe to have high standards of both interoperability, privacy, and of technical advancement. So I think that's perhaps a broader realm of what I've been experiencing today. From the small to the very big, I think there's several areas where we can have more exchange and actually see the greater common good. I think that's one thing I would conclude from being here today.
Thank you. So, well, yeah, indeed. I think we have seen that there is a lot of things going on, and that we are sharing more and more. We are working together, and I think that it was a good example today with all the presentations we had. I would also take your comment on the NLP presentation, where there was the usage of data that is out there, structured, unstructured data. putting together with NLP and using HPC. So in fact, this has given them opportunities to move to the future. And indeed, this was very interesting for me because this is the idea with the following program that will come in the next multi-financial framework, which is the Digital Europe program, where indeed we will have HPC, AI, cybersecurity, digital skills, and all what is related to interoperability and public services. So I think that this was one of the examples of the use cases where we can put all these resources together to offer better services to the citizens. So I think that the Digital Europe program is a good idea, and I hope you will support it. As it was recalled this morning, there is still a survey that you can fill to shape the 2 first years of the program. So I think this is very important, and this shows that we can work together, taking the best of each and moving to better services for our citizens. And that will be all from my side. And there are no other questions. So I think we can